Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I sat there mesmerized looking at the television this morning, and I am amazed. That's not a good enough word. I'm shocked as to the inability of Robert Mueller to handle and answer questions. And he is the chief investigator. To be quite frank with you, it's embarrassing. Here comes Kate Smith, and God Bless America, followed by, come on, Patriots. Now more than ever, we need you to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning, good morning. My home, sweet home. How true. Good morning, good morning. Zeb at the ranch, and of course, this is Zeb Bell right behind the microphone saying good morning to you and your family on behalf of our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with the best of safe driving tires. And of course, don't forget some of our great advertisers, including Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Without further ado, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Lorna Doone, thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow at Lunch Bunch. Thank you very, very much.
I'm going to be out of town.
Oh, it's not going to be the same without you, so God bless you and be careful, okay?
Will do.
All right, thank you. There's a lovely, lovely lady right there. And don't forget Lunch Bunch is tomorrow. I'll tell you more about that later. Right now it's time for the weather, K&R Rental with Roger and the crew. Let me tell you, they can help you any way possible with all the best of tools and equipment you need. K&R Rental at 256 South 600 west of Hayburn. Right there, you can't miss them. They're on the Burley-Paul Highway. And I urge you, if you have questions about what kinds of equipment you need to finish a job, just give them a call before you stop over. 678-3122. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Well, at least we're out of the heat advisory. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, but due to harvest kicking up and due to the wildfires in the area, we are going to have some hazy conditions. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, you might want to take note of that. We are expecting a high of 85 today. Tonight, mostly clear with a low of 55. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, expecting a high of 90, overnight low of 61. Few clouds going to be rolling in for Friday, mostly cloudy skies, high of 90. Then by Friday evening, we do have a slight chance of thunderstorms, then back to partly cloudy skies, low of 60. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the ranch.
I appreciate it, Gina. Thank you. And they've got everything over at K&R Rental. Their front yard tells you that. Let me tell you, you go on in at the Burley-Paul Highway location, you'll see what I mean. They offer the best of rental tools and equipment for both long and short term. And like I said, if you're not sure what you need to finish a job, just call Roger and the crew, 678-3122. K&R Rental on the Burley-Paul Highway. You get a hold of them today. We've had a transition on our program for the different guests. I have never seen a program, I think in 20 years, that has had to rechange and rechange and rechange with guests. Some of the old standbys that were supposed to be on their different segments could not be on the radio today, and so we've had to reschedule. We've got Gregory Wrightstone, author of Inconvenient Facts, coming on to talk a little bit about green energy and the absolute idiocy of trying to switch over to that, i.e., Idaho Power. And then, of course, at 9:30 with the Pacific Legal Foundation, David Dearson's going to be on. Then at 10:06, one very consistent person that I can always rely on is Josh with Sportsman's Warehouse with the old fishing hole. And then we're going to be talking to the CEO of IEDcrisis.com, Grant Haber, about Afghanistan and how dangerous it is and how are we ever going to get out of there. So that's what's coming up this morning. I also want to urge you, we talked earlier, Deanne did, to our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric. And they get there also early in the morning at 7:30 and stay there till 5 Monday through Friday at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley for all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. They can help. They will help at Ramsey Heating and Electric. That's what I need. I got to get some new lights here in the studio. And Ramsey Heating and Electric, they are the ones. 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459. The best for over 6 decades, Ramsey Heating and Electric. Now, I've had a couple of calls, and people said, is tomorrow really lunch bunch? Yes, it is. At Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner, 611 North Overland in Burley. Oh, I'm really anxious for it. I mean, I look forward to seeing all my friends. Everybody, come on down. It's going to be fun. And we start at 11:30. Right there at the Burley location, 611 North Overland and Burley of America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant. The best of breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, anytime, all the time. And we're going to have a lot of door prizes, too, supplied to us by Walmart, Smith's Foods, Hanson Mortuary, Stokes Groceries, Doug Martin, Denny's, etc. Please don't miss it at Denny's Restaurant tomorrow, Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. It is a good morning. I watched that fiasco this morning for a little bit, and I got tired, and I put Gunsmoke on instead. This fiasco is nothing more than a cover-up for the mistake the Democratic Party is doing to keep this border open. That's all it is.
Tony, I want to go back, even though you watched it for a little time, but I do want you to agree or disagree. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you disagree with me. But I thought Mueller was acting like an extremely vulnerable old man that has lost his ability to be sharp and answer questions. Did you get that same feeling, or was it just me?
Yes, absolutely. He was just walking on ice over there. He was just waiting to make one slip, and that would blow his cover.
You know, it was, I didn't get that. Please repeat that. I didn't understand that. And then he had help from his sidebar, which I think is absolutely wrong. That's another question I've got for you. At the last minute, the Democrats allowed for a personal attorney and a helper to Mueller sit next to him. And in the background, did you notice that he was answering the questions like yes or no, and then Mueller would repeat it? That's not the testimony that should be given.
Oh, no, I caught all that up there. And they're scared to death of what Mueller might accidentally spill over the airways to cut this whole thing off.
Now, I just was shocked as to the lack of professionalism by Bob Mueller. I mean, he stuttered, he stammered, he couldn't put constructive sentences together, and I'm not criticizing him on behalf of being a conservative versus liberals or anything like that. I'm just saying that whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have to be honest and survey what was going on and say, this man is inept.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, after this, I consider the Democratic Party nothing more than an assassination squad. That's all I consider them.
Well, I did get a kick out of one of the comments made by, and I cannot for the life of me recall the person's name, when he said, I've only got a few short minutes to ask my questions, and I know my colleagues that are of the Democratic and Socialist Party are listening. Did you hear that?
Well, I think Napolitano had it nailed down this morning. There's not really anything they're going to be able to do to condemn Trump.
I don't either.
Done too much good for the country.
Yeah. This is a frivolous waste of time, but above all, a waste of money. Tony, God bless you, and thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody about Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, and I didn't make it down there yesterday. Yesterday was one of those days where if something's going to blow up and go negative, oh yeah, it did. Had to take care of it. Anyway, Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Super great folks helping you with your aching and paining to help you get back to being you. They're located at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Nick Greenwell and all the great physical therapists, along with that only of its kind hydrotherapy pool. Oh, please don't put it off. Call the number, make an appointment, 678-1191. That number again, 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, serving you. Also, I want to reiterate that Ark Animal Hospital. Now, a lot of people probably are saying, well, what happens if my little puppy dog gets sick? Or who do I call if all of a sudden I need to do something with my horse, or it got cut? Or what about all my dairy cattle? Hey, mixed animal practice, ready to serve you. Ark Animal Hospital at 750 21st Street near Connection Credit Union in Hayburn. And believe me, there's a lot of things seasonally that you have to watch out for your pets and your livestock. So please, if you have questions, give them a call at 678-1177. That number again, 678-1177. Ark Animal Hospital in Hayburn, where they do have the warm hearts for the cold noses. Really good people. All right, it's open forum right now. You folks are welcome, and I encourage you to give me a call and talk about any subject you want to. I want to just start things off that all eyes, as I said a few moments ago, and ears, for the bulk of this morning are on Washington, D.C., and it started at approximately 6:30 our time this morning. The testimony of Robert Mueller, and I got to be honest again that I was, for a man of his stature, a man supposedly that everybody said, oh, he can do a great job, I think the man has absolutely lost it. There was a commentator the other day that was being interviewed about Robert Mueller, and there was an insinuation that Robert Mueller is having some problems. Robert Mueller has lost a little bit of his drive, desire, and faculties to be able to answer rapid-fire questions and recall events and testimony and writings in his report. I think anyone that watches that this morning has seen that. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You know, there's part about Don McGahn. I forget who was on the Republican side was asking the questions, but he's not going to be found anywhere because what they're trying to do is to put words in there that don't belong. In other words, I never did hear anywhere where the president had said, fire him. Mm-hmm. Had you?
No, but I want to revert back to what I stated earlier this morning when we started this segment. Evidently, you have watched some of that this morning, and I don't want kind of a flowered-up appraisal. I just want it very blunt and honest. Do you agree or disagree with me that Robert Mueller does not appear to be in control of the information with the recall that's necessary?
He is not even in this world when it comes to answering the questions. He just isn't. I don't know whether his mind is focused somewhere else, but he'll just get on there and stutter and stammer and everything. He'd be better off to say, I do not recall.
And right there, Keith, you've summed up what I saw earlier this morning, was a stammering, very insecure, very not sure of the circumstances or the evidence that was gathered. Robert Mueller did not make, in my opinion, any friends with people that thought he was very articulate. I found him to be bumbling and stumbling this morning.
I do too. And some people are real sharp at 74. He ain't one of them.
Keith, God bless you. Don't forget, we'll see you at Lunch Bunch tomorrow. Thank you so much for your call. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
You can count on that.
All right, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not trying to run the man down. I don't want anybody to make that inference. No, I am not. I'm just being very, very honest that as the chief prosecutor, that was the man supposedly to garner the information along with his staff and compile that information along with his staff and make a over 400-page report, his recollection, recall in general, and the stumbling and bumbling and not knowing or understanding questions left me very cold this morning. Caller, I'll be right there. I want to remind everybody, hey, it's all starting next week. You better believe it. The great big 71st Annual Minidoka County Fair. Making tracks to the Minidoka County Fair. Wow, these people are great people, and they know how to have fun. They're going to start things off on Monday the 29th with the lawnmower races, and then have Tiny Tot Gymkhanas and all kinds of music, and like I said yesterday, food, and more food. Wednesday, July 31st, they're going to have the Lions Barbecue. Oh, and then, of course, don't forget the Junior Rodeo. And then on the 2nd and 3rd, the Wild West Open Rodeo. It's all fun for you at your Minidoka County Fair. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, sadly, I did not get to hear all of it. I was listening on the radio occasionally, but I did hear one statement made that they actually did find evidence that Trump was involved with Russia, and then also that when he was told about this investigation or what was going to be done, that he was very upset, saying this is going to cost him his presidency. Could you comment on those things, Jeff?
I will comment, but I didn't hear that section of it. I was preparing for the program, and I'm certainly not trying to avoid your question. I did not hear that part, but I will say this. If the report had found anything as demonizing and negative as that, why didn't they elaborate that to the American public and let everybody know that you can't indict a sitting president? We know that, but that the minute his term was up, they were going to prefer charges, and I don't think that was ever inferred.
Yes, that question was asked. That's just the part that I did hear, that the question was asked then about him being indicted after his presidency, and that, of course, that was answered yes. But when he was asked flat out if they did find evidence of collusion with the president, with the Russians, he said yes, they did. And I had never heard anything that was that solid as far as information.
Well, you see, this,
someone else can comment on.
Adrian, you've touched on what I was talking about earlier. The inferences and the inability to kind of comprehend and draw back into his mental capacity and remember things. This man did not seem secure. And many times while I was watching in that first half hour, I heard in the background, which was off to the side, his sidebar attorney give the answer of yes or no for Mueller, because Mueller was looking vague and stuttering and stammering. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to the American public. I don't think it's fair to that hearing that someone else is prompting his answers and we're only getting what the prompter is giving. Your thoughts quickly.
Well, no, yes, and I did hear that. Like I say, I was hearing on the radio, and I did hear that first portion the real early, and I totally agree with you. I heard it too, and I agree with what you're saying. So I won't keep you anymore, but thank you.
No, thank you. I always look forward to hearing from you. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. I want to remind everybody about Rain for Rent. Oh, they really care about your irrigation. They really care about the growing season for you, and they want to help you all they can. Rain for Rent, your Reinke Diamond dealer. Let me tell you something. They care with the staff they've got, dedicated sales and service staff, and they know irrigation. Upside down, sideways, they know irrigation and all the equipment. Please call them today, 438-5065. That number again, 438-5065. Rain for Rent, located at 134 South, 600 West DePaul. Good people, knowledgeable people serving you at Rain for Rent. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Bell. You know, I, for one, am sick and tired of all these questions and investigations. Mueller made his report. I've never heard anything about where they found that there was collusion or obstruction. What are they supposed to get out of these questions that they're asking him? Are they trying to trip him up? The only thing he can say is, I refer back to my report.
Yes. You know, that was the most common used answer for Robert Mueller for the short period of time that I had to watch it on television before preparing for the program this morning. But I will also revert back to what I said a moment ago. I'd like to hear your comment. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it should be legal to have this kind of a hearing with someone else sitting off to the side, a sidebar attorney, giving a yes or no to Mueller to respond to the question. I don't think that's right.
It's not right, but they're not going to do anything about it. They had a newscast yesterday. I think it was on Fox News. I just kind of got a little bit of it, and they were getting special attorneys to go in and help him to say what he needed to say. And like you said, I think that should be contempt right there. He should be able to recall what he put in the report. If he doesn't, then he should just continue to say, refer back to my report.
Yeah, you know, here's the thing, Donna, and you've touched on it. Caller number 2, I'll be right there. Robert Mueller signed off on that report. He was the chief investigator, was he not? Yes, he was. And when the report was over, all 400 pages, he signed off on it. He said, this is my report. I agree with the findings. So now to change things or accept answers from outside attorneys or legal counsel sitting next to him, I find that offensive and should be not allowed in this hearing.
Oh, I totally agree. Like I said, if he can't remember, then he doesn't need to be taking the witness stand. He needs to just say, refer back to my report and be done with it.
Absolutely.
I'm tired. I'm ready for this mess to be over.
I think most of the American public is, but let me tell you something, Donna, and please don't come after me with the hatchet, but I think this is only the tip of the iceberg. If there is any sentence that could be construed in favor of what the Democrats want for impeachment, I'll just say it this way, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, I totally agree. I think they're just trying to flub him up so that he'll make a misstatement. And they're going to have, so we're going to have another 2 to 4 years or however many more years. It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Start taking care of the things that need to be taken care of in this country.
Wouldn't that be a novel idea?
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Okay, Donna, God bless you. Thanks.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Caller, I'll be right with you. I want to remind everybody, Monday at 8:30, we always give away a dozen cookies. Oh, they're good cookies. To Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street in Rupert. Oh, my goodness. The bakery, the restaurant, all of this for your enjoyment. Don't forget, every Monday at 8:30, a dozen cookies from Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street in Rupert. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning again. Did you happen to observe this thing I'm going to ask you, that Mueller has an earpiece in?
I did not see the earpiece, and I don't think he did. Why? Are you making the assumption that he did?
No, I'm telling you he did.
Okay.
Because he keeps fiddling with his ear, his left ear.
Okay.
And they're feeding him this information from an attorney or somebody like that. And that's the main reason why he's stuttering so much.
Well, wait a minute, though, Keith, honestly. Until I honestly hear that he has a receiver in his ear, I'm going to say it possibly could be a hearing aid device. He has said many, many times, pardon me, I couldn't hear, repeat the question, etc., and I'm going to give the devil his dues until I find out it's a receiver and not just a hearing device. I've got to be real careful because I will not say or intimate anything on this program that I don't know as fact. I do know as fact that Robert Mueller is inept, Robert Mueller is not sharp, and Robert Mueller is not answering the questions, and he's avoided many questions by saying, I'll refer to my testimony or I'll refer to the report.
Okay, answer this question then.
I feel like you're grilling me like a member of Congress. Go ahead.
You know, is it legal for him to have a device there?
I don't believe so. Now, there again, you're talking about legalities that if I don't know something, I'm going to say right up front I don't know something. I'm not like some talk show hosts that'll babble on forever with their opinion. I don't know. I don't think it is legal to have a receiver earpiece. If it's a hearing aid device, I believe that it is absolutely permissible. But as a receiver that possibly could be fed answers or give history or some kind of information, I don't think that's legal.
Well, I know you deal strictly in the facts, but I like to look at it in reality.
Well, I'm not going to disavow your opinion. I'm not disavowing your opinion at all because if it is a receiver-type ear implementation and someone in the background could be saying, whoop, there goes my cell phone all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Somebody might be giving him information when he gets into kind of the shallow end of the pool. I find that to be totally illegal and should be stopped.
Yeah, and another thing I noticed is Congressman Gibbs, who was just on, just as before we were talking, and he was giving it to him straight, and Mueller was really squirming.
Yeah. I just think that this is going to be a lot of to-do for a complete lack of substance. That's my own personal opinion. Keith, God bless you, man. Thanks for a call. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But what happened to the question? Just answer the question, yes or no. They're not doing that.
Have you ever known a politician to be able to do that? Honestly, give me that answer. Have you ever heard a politician go yes or no? They never play the Gary Cooper routine. They always have to give you an answer that goes on for 47 minutes.
You're exactly right. Continue.
All right. Thank you, my dear friend. Thank you. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. We'll talk more about Mueller if you wish. I got to tell you that after watching the videos of what took place to the policeman in New York City, both with the heinous attacks on them, with the water and the complete disrespect, and then also what happened with the video on a subway in New York, I am of the opinion that it is high time, past time, to turn our men in blue loose to not only defend themselves, but to defend their profession, and to act in the manner that they were hired as law enforcement officers, and if need be, and this sounds calloused, start cracking heads. I am appalled that in this country of the United States of America, with our laws and our supposed moral values, that we're letting trash We're letting trash dictate what goes on in response to our police. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Don't forget, we've got a lot of great people to visit about this morning, and I certainly appreciate each and every one of my great advertisers, and one of those, of course, Greystone Crossing. Boy, you better get a hold of them today, seniors, and check out the living for you and the camaraderie and fellowship with your other neighbors right there, and great food, housekeeping, transportation. My goodness, it makes your life easier at Greystone Crossing. Independent senior living. Absolutely. I urge you to call the number 650-4979. Talk too fast? I'll say it again. 650-4979. Talk to Matt and Kelly Wiggins and try to book an appointment to stop by and see the new beautiful facilities for you. At Greystone Crossing Independent Living for Seniors. Make sure you make that call today, 650-4979. Also, real quick, while I'm waiting for your phone calls, I want to remind you about our friends at Barry Equipment and Rental. And, of course, sales, service, and parts. You know, Barry's been with us on this program for a long, long time. And when it comes to the equipment, I mean to go out there and lift and dig and push and carry. Oh, they've got the equipment to get that job done. Let me tell you, all the Doosan wheel loaders and excavators and all the Bobcats, all the Bobcat sizes, and they've got it all. And they've got great rental rates and great financing rates if you're looking to buy. I urge you to make your life easier with the equipment that you can obtain from Barry Equipment and Rental. 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Napa location of Barry Equipment and Rental. Really good people. You know, I know that most of you probably have seen that video of the police, two police officers, absolutely being harassed, humiliated, and quite frankly, assaulted, and had buckets of water poured over their heads, and they walked away because of Mayor de Blasio's stupid stand-down order. And it is absolutely so repulsive to see these men that have gone through police academies to serve the public, protect the public. They're standing there and they're being made out to be clowns, a laughingstock. Can you imagine, and I know this might sound a little facetious to you, but I was thinking about this earlier this morning. Can you imagine back in the days of the Old West, let's just go back to a fictional character on television. Let's go back to Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke. Now, James Arness, the actor that played Matt Dillon, was a great big man, had served in our military in World War II. He and his brother, Peter Graves, outstanding individuals, nice people, great Americans. But can you imagine in the depiction of Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke, somebody in Dodge City going up to Matt Dillon and dousing him with water? And then as he goes down the street to the marshal's office, he's continually barraged with water and buckets thrown at him. Now, let's go back to those times when law was respected. Matt Dillon probably would have turned around with his size and bulk, and the perpetrator would have been put in a chokehold and literally dragged off to the marshal's office. Clink! There's the key in the lock, and they're locked up. Or had he been hit in the head with a bucket? Same circumstance. I think big old Matt Dillon would have taken care of things. That's what respect for law and order should be. The law is going to get you if you do something wrong or you step afoul of the law. But to ask these policemen to be subjected to be buffoons and turned into clowns and not respected by society, That's the lowest I've ever seen. I think it's about past time, that the billy clubs come out and people are wrestled to the ground, put handcuffs on them, and off to jail they go for assault and battery. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. I relate to what you're saying. Having grown up, I'm getting close to the 90s spot. Having grown up back east, I lived in the Bronx for a short while, and I have to say I was one of those punk kids in those days, but the cops were in control. If you ever got out of line, out would come the billy clubs and the blackjacks, and you would have an attitude adjustment right out in the street, and that was it. You wouldn't want any more. You wouldn't want to see these cops anymore.
Okay, but therein is the next statement that needs to be said. They created a safe haven in that area, that environment, because they were taking care of the punks and they were taking care of the lawless people that were trying to basically turn everything into chaos. I respect the cops, and I think you do too.
Oh, I do. I had a lot of respect for the cops. You better have. Otherwise, you'd go home with a sore backside, and there was no place to go either, because I would get it again when I got home.
Absolutely. But let me ask you this. The longer this is allowed to fester like an open sore, it's going to go to other areas. It's going to go to other cities. It's going to be allowed in other respective towns. And this thing's going to be a cancer to where the cops can't do anything. They better stop this right now. And Bill de Blasio, one of the, if not the worst mayor ever in the history of the United States for any city, absolutely needs to have duct tape put over his mouth, shut up, and let law enforcement do their job.
Well, cities like New York City are the ones with no law enforcement are going to draw the worst of the criminals anywhere.
Yeah. But Tony, if you were a policeman, honestly, and you're walking your beat, and all of a sudden you're subjected to this and you're told to stand down. It was water this time. What's it going to be next time? Is it going to be cement mixed in with water? Is it going to be some other substance? Is it going to be some chemical that could burn and hurt them? I mean, this has got to stop, Tony.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it's not going to stop because the police officers' jobs are in jeopardy if they try to protect the public and themselves.
Yeah. I said it the other day, and I mean it. A good billy club is necessary right now, and handcuffs, drag them off. They are perpetrators of assault and battery, and they need to be stopped. Tony, God bless you, man. I appreciate your call. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you very much. Caller, I'll be right there, I promise. I just want to remind everybody about the Bennett Boys Auction Service. They got a big sale coming up this Saturday, July 27th. It is the Lou Sterling Estate Auction on Kimberly, in Kimberly, Storage Land 22. I want to make sure I get this right. Stop by. Storage Land 22329 Kimberly Road is the address. From the east side of Twin, go to the east on Kimberly Road to Storage Land. You'll see the signs, and that's where they're going to have this estate auction. And I can tell you, I knew this family years and years ago, and the collectibles and the antiques and all the glassware and the furniture. It's amazing collection. You've got to check this sale out. It's going to be at 11 o'clock Saturday, this coming Saturday, July 27th, the Lou Sterling Estate Auction managed by the Bennett Boys Auction Service. Don't forget, no sale too big, no sale too small. The Bennett Boys, they sell them all. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Well, when it comes to police, and if I was to go down here and just, there was an officer, standing there getting ready to go into the office or whatever, and I was to do that to him, they would arrest me.
Yep.
It's called assault and battery. I can't even touch the officer. I can't poke him in the chest. I can't do anything. And these guys, because of de Blasio, maybe we don't always like getting a ticket, and maybe sometimes the cop's attitude might be a little sour. But I tell you what, if there's chaos in the streets, we're going to need the cops that stop this mayhem. And hear that stupid SOB de Blasio, he's as dumb as a post, but the people that elect him are dumber. And so, it's a shame. And then with Mueller, Mueller didn't even do anything. It looks to me like it's like he was just there. He was a figurehead. Weissman is the one who did all the work, and all the people under him. Think of the money that we have spent in that investigation, and we continue to do so. Nadler is using our money and wasting our time. That little pea of a man. You know, we could spend that money on infrastructure in Idaho, anywhere, somewhere, any place, but wasting it on this, and there's nothing to it. And you're right. I heard a slight little bit on the news before you came on how stumbling and bumbling Mueller is. There's no way that this is going to be helpful to anybody, especially Nadler and Schiff. These people are as delusional and stupid as he is uninformed, as Mueller seems to be completely out of the picture.
I agree with you and your assessment, and I think no real good, underline that word good, is going to come out of this. Randy, God bless you, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Time for our weather. As a matter of fact, it's past time for our weather. And our weather brought to you by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room. Oh, they can help you. Believe me, I had some problems and went there, and they helped my hearing. And they can help yours. Be sure and call for a hearing screening if you've noticed any diminishment in your hearing, and they will help you. 3 wonderful doctors of audiology, Christine Pickup, Courtney Mitchell, and Shane Hunsaker, ready to serve you at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Please give them a call. Make an appointment, 312-0957. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Well, at least we're out of the heat advisory. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, but due to harvests kicking up and due to the wildfires in the area, we are going to have some hazy conditions. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, you might want to take note of that. We are expecting a high of 85 today. Tonight, mostly clear with a low of 55. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, expecting a high of 90, overnight low of 61. Few clouds going to be rolling in for Friday, mostly cloudy skies, high of 90. Then by Friday evening, we do have a slight chance of thunderstorms, then back to partly cloudy skies, low of 60. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zebeth Rain.
Okay, Gina, thank you very much, and brought to everybody by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Wonderful people, knowledgeable people that know about hearing health and can help you. Call for the appointment today, 312-0957. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Some of the other items in the news that I wanted to get into this morning, but I haven't had the time, is Ilhan Omar. We are going to be, and I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit and say, watch this story, listen to this story over the next couple of weeks, if it's not overshadowed by the idiocy and incompetency of the Democrats on the Mueller report. But what we're going to be seeing and learning about Ilhan Omar, that Muslim congresswoman, that she maybe is one of the biggest frauds, one of the biggest liars to ever come down the pike, and possibly could be drummed out of office because of perjury, immigration fraud, marriage fraud, state and federal tax fraud, and federal student loan fraud. I'm not making this up. I am absolutely telling you the truth that now the group called Judicial Watch with Tom Fitton, they are making a concentrated effort and investigation of wrongdoing by Representative Omar. The evidence developed against Representative Omar has been the result of a 3-year-long investigation in both the United States and the United Kingdom by a Mr. Steinberg and his investigative reporter colleagues, Preya Samsundar and Scott Johnson. It is supported by the information gathered from public records, social media postings, genealogical databases, computer forensic analysis, unaltered digital photographs, discussions between the investigative reporters and the subjects of investigation themselves, and information supplied by confidential sources within the Somali American community. In other words, she is a fraud, a charlatan, a liar, and dangerous. She is vile and evil and part of a sinister plot to fragment America. And I'm just going to kind of keep following this story, even if you don't hear about it on the ABC, CNNs, CBSs, etc. And they, of course, being liberal, wouldn't want one of their liberal sisters to be watched and scrutinized. But I'll tell you what, some of the allegations are starting to almost loom as 100% bona fide. Like, Omar married her brother to get into this country. And there is substantial, compelling, and to date unrefuted evidence that supports that allegation. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Oh, I tell you that every day I'm going to be talking about Idaho Power and their lack of courage to come on this program or at least address the issue, give me a call, etc. Nothing from Idaho Power yesterday. And I did try to reach out to one of their representatives on one of the many callbacks that I've left on his phone, and still crickets. Absolutely nothing. But I urge you, the audience, and I mean this, I can't do this all by myself. You, the audience, have got to be outraged about all of a sudden going green and the questions that are going to be coming in about the costs of going green energy, transitional costs, etc. You, the public, need to be calling Idaho Power and demanding answers. You, the public, need to demand the answers. Don't leave this just up to me. Don't forget our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best of tires. All the different tread designs, all the sizes, literally for all the outfits. All the vehicles, SUVs, cars, pickups, horse trailers, boat trailers, everything. Whatever you need tires for, they've got tires. And many of which they have a rebate back on now. So you better check out all the great tire buys at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And check out, too, the free pre-trip safety check. Oh, my goodness. Service is the main thing to you from all 7 locations with the best in brake service, front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, everything. With Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Trent on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Caller, good morning. I've only got a minute left. Go ahead.
I don't understand Idaho Power's policy process, what they think they're doing. How much greener and cleaner can you be than water?
Well, and the transitional fees to go to 100% green in 20-some-odd years, to solar and wind, you know as well as I do, and I know who I'm talking to. You've done the studies. You've done the research. This has been tried and failed in other parts of the world, especially Germany, Spain, etc. And the ratepayers, let me finish. The ratepayers of Idaho Power deserve answers.
Absolutely. But how much greener can you be than water?
Absolutely.
I mean, they have. I don't understand why they think they're going to gain, like you say, with the solar and the wind, because those are so inconsistent. Yesterday there wouldn't have been enough sun to have done anything because we were so overcast with all the smoke. Today there's no wind, So, it just is so inconsistent. They know they have the water. They've always had the water. Water's free to them, and I just don't get it.
Well, caller, real quick, and I've only got a couple of seconds left, but see, there again is my point. By not coming on this program and asking questions, answering questions that I have, and also answering questions fielded that you might have, they've turned themselves into a very secretive and clandestine organization to where they feel in a very smuggish attitude they don't have to talk to you.
Yeah, but the thing of it is they have us over the proverbial barrel, because where else do we go get our power?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep pursuing it. I'm going to keep pursuing. I agree. I'm out of time for this hour, but I'm going to keep pursuing it. And please don't forget to kind of join with me, because they need to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for your call. Got to run to the news. I'll be back in 7 minutes. Don't forget. Stay tuned. Zeb at the Ranch. Service, and that, of course, means call the number 734-6969. Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. I don't care if you're new to the area or if you've been here for a long time, you want to get rid of your garbage. Weekly, they'll come by on the route service, pick it up, it's gone. Give them a call, 734-6969. Western Waste Services. Before we go to our guest, I've got a couple other good words. Excuse me, and I want to remind everybody about a big, giant indoor tent event going on right now at Redder Showcase, 2611 Overland in Burley. Listen to this. Up to 12 months, same as cash, on approved credit, and they've got great buys. Dishwashers starting at just $329, ranges starting at $399, air conditioners starting at $169, up to 12 months. Like I said, same as cash on approved credit. This is a big event, the great indoor tent event at Redder Showcase, 2611 Overland in Burley. You stop in and see them today. We're going to have our dear friend Gregory Wrightstone on our program in just a moment, and I also want to acknowledge the fact that we have another great group that has been with us ever since we started this program, and that, of course, is Hanson Mortuary with Joel Heward, his family, and his staff at 710 6th Street in Rupert. You know, folks, it's absolutely important that when there's a passing of a loved one in your family, that you find people that can work with you and provide your family the best possible support and comfort. They do that, and they always uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. I urge you to call them at 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary in Rupert, and Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very prejudiced, if you will, about the guests that come on my program and talk about various subjects. This next man has been on my show many times. I have the utmost faith in him that the information he gives you is 100% above board, and I believe in what he's saying. I absolutely relish the book that he had written called Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. And I say good morning again to a dear friend, Gregory Wrightstone. Good morning.
Oh, thanks for having me back on, Zeb. I'm talking to you from chilly South Carolina, Pawleys Island at the beach, where it's 70 degrees.
Oh, my.
A full 13 degrees below normal. Too cold, actually, to even get in the water. No one's in the water out here. So just 3 days ago when we arrived, the big talk on all the news stations were that we had this extreme heat wave going on here. We got up to 91 degrees. No one's talking about the cold weather now, which is kind of typical for the climate alarmists that yell about every 3 degrees above normal, but they're mysteriously quiet when it gets a little chilly.
Greg, I want to talk to you about quite a few subjects this morning, but I'm springing this information on you unannounced, and I apologize up front. But as you know, and I think we've talked about it on previous programs, our Idaho Power in this area is making statements and have issued press releases that they are going to go 100% green in about 20 plus years. And they're going to be closing down major coal-fired plants that have been very efficient in providing power to the Northwest, one in Wyoming, one down in Nevada, and going with the, at best, green power of solar and water primarily, and also the solar, water, and the wind turbines. I have taken it upon myself to invite them on my program, Greg, to discuss going green, and they have shunned me and told me they would not come on and answer questions. How would you feel if you were in my boots and Idaho Power going green wouldn't answer questions?
I think I'd do what you're exactly doing right now, which is lambasting them. And we have to be careful when we talk to these people that we stick with the facts. We see things like this in every state that's going on across the United States. And I think one of the key facts that's important for you when you do talk to these people is what is their goal? Their goal is to reduce the temperature of the earth, right? Is that that's their goal. They want to reduce the temperature of the earth by reducing greenhouse gases. So we've just added what's called the MAGIC simulator, MAGICC. It tells you how much future temperature would be reduced by various reductions of carbon dioxide emissions. And I've got that on my website. We've got a full page devoted to it. And you can go and look and I took a look here before we got on the air. What would the result of Idaho reducing 100% of its CO2 emissions? How would that affect temperature on Earth? It would reduce it by 2050 and 2100. The temperature rise that would be averted by doing that would be less than 1/1000th of a degree Fahrenheit. Less than 1/1000th of a degree Fahrenheit. So what they're trying to do is what they're proposing to do will necessarily increase costs to the consumers. Every one of your listeners will be paying much higher energy costs for electricity. They're going to be taxing fuel transportation, gasoline, and diesel. Every item that they're going to buy that needs electricity, which means everything you're going to purchase, their costs will necessarily rise. And how many, and I'll ask you and your listeners, and I think we all know the answer, but how many jobs lost is a temperature difference of less than 1/1000th of a degree Fahrenheit worth?
Yeah.
I'd say zero. And I think all of your listeners are all giving me thumbs up right now. Heck no. We don't want, we don't want one job lost. And that's even the temperature rise averted is below our threshold for measurement. We can't even measure temperature changes that small. That's what they're trying to do. When we put that into, and again, people don't talk about it, and these ayatollahs of alarmism, they don't talk about what this is. When we put it in the stark terms of, we want to lower the temperature of the earth. Well, that just sounds stupid. And it's below, and again, this MAGIC simulator, I disagree with the models. I think they overpredict the amount of warming, but what I did was actually use their own data to throw in their face how little change that we would have in terms of modifying future temperatures.
Well, Greg,
that CO2 is the thermostat that you can just turn it up and down by modifying CO2 levels, and that's just not the case.
And Wheels over at the station, I'm going to have to ask you to turn Greg up a little bit, please, when he's talking. I'm having just a little difficulty over here at my studio. Thank you very much. Greg, I made the overtures to have them come on the air last week, and here was the excuse. I want you to know, and I want to be very transparent about everything that transpired. I said I'd like to have you come on the program, and I will tell you up front that I'm not a fan of green energy or your proposal to go 100% green, but I feel like you owe the public the answering of my questions and some of their questions. They called me back, and here's what they said. No, we will never come on your program because, quote unquote, you're too political. Explain that to me, please. I'd like to know.
Well, this is a very political situation. This is what it's all about. What they're proposing is what I call a solution in search of a problem. As you know, we've talked many times, I'm a huge proponent of the many benefits of rising temperatures and increasing CO2, and which is completely flies in the face of what they're proposing, their so-called solutions to solve this non-existent problem. What I see is an Earth that's thriving and prospering and greening, and humanity's benefiting by rising temperatures and increasing CO2. And what they don't understand is that the rising temperatures we've seen in the past have always correlated with civilizations that thrived and prospered. Humanity prospered from much higher temperatures than what we see today. They're telling us and your listeners that, oh my God, we have to limit the temperature rise to less than 1.5 degrees centigrade or terrible things are going to happen. But yet, history tells us that's just not the case. History tells us it's the cold periods that we need to fear. It's the cold periods that led to crop loss, famine, and mass depopulation. That's the big story that's not being communicated. And that's what I'm doing right now with my next book that I'm in the middle of, is to really to document if you believe in catastrophic man-made warming, you need to believe that our current temperatures are unusual and unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this in thousands of years. But what we do see is we look over the last several thousand years that temperatures rise, like we're seeing now that we've had for 300 years, is very similar to past temperature rises, and we should benefit from that. So I embrace any warming that we see, and we see that it's leading to that associated with CO2 fertilization. In other words, increasing CO2 is driving plant growth, and that's driving crop growth. That, along with the increasing temperature, we're able to feed an earth and a hungry earth. People that are looking for more food are getting it because of the climate changes we're seeing. And as you know, I'm also a contributing writer to the Cornwall Alliance, where we believe, it's a Christian group, and we believe that we need to use all of God's creation, everything we have, all of our resources, and use that for the betterment of mankind, but all the while do it as good stewards.
Absolutely.
And that's a pretty simple thing that most people you would think would agree with, but that philosophy flies in the face of this radical environmental agenda and the Green New Deal that AOC, and in fact, speaking of AOC, her chief of staff last week let the cat out of the bag what this is all about. He was the primary architect of the Green New Deal. He in an interview with the Washington Post, he asked the interviewer, he says, do you really think this, and when he said this, the Green New Deal, is about environment or climate change? He says, no, we want to fundamentally change the economic structure of the United States and the world. He admitted that's what their goal was.
Greg, I'm going to ask you a question right now, and I'm saying this with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but it's very serious. Our government wants to ascertain the funds to rebuild our infrastructure across the board, which it needs, new bridges, paving of roads, etc. And they want to spend literally billions and billions of dollars. But my question to you is, why spend the money or try to garner the money when AOC and others want to take our cars away in about 18 months?
Yeah, well, that's actually... Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but you're exactly right. I mean, if we're going to have to get rid of all of our vehicles, which is the goal for these people, they want us all to go on to mass transit. No more trips to Home Depot for you. We need to have you, get the plywood and building materials. You better get that on the bus. But they want us all to do mass transit rather than personal vehicle use, and it's just crazy.
Well, along with that, though, Greg, with your studies and all the different facts that you've counteracted the idiocy of the left and Al Gore specifically, I'm looking at an area here that is dependent upon agriculture as the main source of income. We live in an area quite similar to the San Joaquin Valley in California, the Magic Valley with the potatoes and the sugar beets and the alfalfa hay and all the corn production, etc. How are you going to have a agricultural program that you're going to try to sustain when you eliminate fossil fuels and tractors and everything else?
Well, I've thought a lot about this, Zeb, and if you can keep a secret, I'm investing heavily in oxen husbandry because there'll be a huge demand coming up in the not too distant future for ox carts. To take all that produce you're talking about, get that to market on ox carts like we did in the past. So if you're looking forward for a great investment opportunity, I think either construction of ox carts or buy into oxen husbandry to get those out there, because that's really what they haven't thought this through at all. Well, maybe they have thought it through. And then what they want to do is destroy America as we know it. It goes from the science that I like to talk about into political science when we talk about, why are they doing this? Why are they lying to us? They are lying to us. Not that climate change isn't happening. It is. But they're lying to us about the severity of terrible consequences that will come, increasing fires, which we've talked about in the past, that the science tells us the actually number of fires have declined, although the area burned has increased. But that's a forest management issue. We can get around that with better forest management. We've seen that intense heat waves have actually been in significant decline since for the last 80 or more years, and things like that fly in the face of these terrible prognostications that they're talking about.
What are we going to do, and I'm at the end of my rope on trying to figure this out, to educate people, not only in our school systems, but when you look at Congress, look at whether it's Republican or Democrat, and they go to work and they sit there behind their plush desks in their three-piece suits and their wingtip shoes, and they haven't got a clue, not a clue as to what the real world is, what happens in the real world, going back to agriculture as far as production is concerned, transportation issues, etc. And how could anybody in their right mind sign on to a climate pact that would all of a sudden put us in caves burning buffalo dung?
Yeah, there are a lot of misguided people, but thank God for Donald Trump. He has done such a great job on this situation with climate change. He has pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accord. He's fighting some of these Republicans like Lindsey Graham, others. There's a whole bunch that came out of the old Bush administration that are pushing this, what they're calling a competitive free market solution, again, it's solution in quotation marks, to climate change by imposing taxes, a carbon tax. These people, they're proposing these things. It's a solution, again, in search of a problem. But Donald Trump Trump has appointed Willie Happer, a climate physicist, to his staff now. Willie Happer is a very well-reasoned. He's a climate skeptic like I am. And again, we're not skeptical that climate change is happening. He acknowledges that readily, but he also acknowledges the very low amount of warming effect that CO2 has, and that he's a huge proponent of naturally driven temperature changes, just as it's been driven for, well, since the beginning of time, actually. It's temperature rise. You know, I've said before on your show that the only thing constant about temperature is it's never constant. It's going up or down, up and down, up and down. And I'm truly concerned, though, Zeb, that we are going to be entering a cooling period coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
For the farmers in your area, that would not be good.
Absolutely.
Historically, that we've had crop failure associated with those cooling periods. It's not been pleasant. There's not much technology when you get into some of these cooling periods and look at the history of what has occurred in the past. Fertilizer, new agricultural techniques, and the like are not going to prevent the famine and crop failure like we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, I come from a farming background myself. So there's the past cooling periods we've seen where they called them summers without, or the year without summer, or we see that very cool temperatures with lots of rain every day. Harvest can't be made because it rains, and that's what's associated with these cooling periods. And it's not going to be pleasant for you or your listeners.
Absolutely. One final thought. I've only got a minute left here, Greg. I've got to have your response to the climate change protesters that superglued themselves to the walls of the U.S. Capitol.
I've always been a proponent. I did not see that, but I've always been a proponent of when people lock themselves to something. I'm a big proponent of just give them a squirt of super glue in that lock and walk away and say good luck to you. Let them go. Let them spend 3 days locked to a chain to a chain link fence or whatever. Yeah, these people are just they're silly. I testified to the Pennsylvania House here 2 months ago, and it was quite an accumulation of idiots that we showed up. There was people came dressed in costumes, and it was I've got that on my website. But if your listeners are looking for data and facts, our smartphone app is a great way to go. Just go to the Google Play Store or the App Store and search for Inconvenient Facts. It's a powerful tool that your listeners can use. And then also my website, if your listeners want to write a letter to the editor, I've got a page there for the Magic Simulator, where you can go and you can actually look at what your state, Idaho, how little temperature would be averted with 100% reduction of CO2. I think it's a powerful tool for you and your listeners to use.
Absolutely. I want to say a big thank you to Greg for this reason. He's on vacation with his family, and he gave up 30 minutes of his time to be on our program. I absolutely respect that and thank him for it. Gregory Wrightstone, the author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Greg, God bless. Come back soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Like I said, it was kind of interesting. We had him booked, and he was very nice and called back and said, I'm going to be on vacation with my family. Could we do it another day? And I told him I was kind of stressed out trying to get people to fill in for that various time slot for this morning at the last notice, and he made it so that he could be on the air, and I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Don't forget the Minidoka County Fair and Rodeo next week. Oh, my goodness, and some of the merchants over there that want to invite you to all the fun include Magic Valley Carpet Carpet at 613 D Street in Rupert. These are really great people. They're just off the square, and they have all your flooring needs, all your carpet, hardwood, vinyl, laminate, everything, and over 35 years of experience at Magic Valley Carpet. And also Scows at 323 East 8th Street in Rupert. Oh, my. They're the only locally owned and operated auto parts store in the Mini-Cassia area, and they've been serving the Mini-Cassia area for over 70 years. Their motto to their customers is, every detail matters, and believe me, they've got the top-notch, knowledgeable, professional people at Scows. 323 East 8th Street in Rupert. Whew! Tell you what we're going to do right now. We are going to tell you a little bit about our friends over at Let's Ride. We've got another guest waiting in the wings. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the world. My goodness sakes, they're waiting to serve you. They're open Mondays through Fridays, 9 to 6, Saturdays, 9 to 4. And, boy, warmer temperatures. Want to get out on the lakes and the rivers and the streams, they've got all the watercraft. And if you want to get up in the hills and enjoy the mountains and get up in the cooler air, they've got all the side-by-sides and the four-wheelers. I mean all, because go into that showroom, you'll see what I mean. And all the accessories you need, too. So don't put it off. Get on over to Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the world. And it's really, really true. This is where the fun is sold. Holy cow. One last good word, and that's, of course, when you're over in that area, people that are ready to serve you with the best of insurance, and I'm talking about Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. I mean, your life insurance programs, your health insurance programs, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and so much more, by folks that are dedicated and responsive to your needs. Yep, very accessible to help you. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. The number to call, 436-4424. Don't forget Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line, and one of our old reliables, if you will, and that would be our friends with the Pacific Legal Foundation. And with us this morning is attorney David Dearson. David, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. David, there's a lot of different subjects and a lot of different cases that we talk about on this program with Pacific Legal Foundation. And the case that we're going to be talking about this morning about a disabled military veteran, I understand that within the last few days, as a matter of fact, has been settled. But I want you to give us kind of a synopsis of this case, what the problems were, and then the settlement. Go ahead, if you would, please.
Sure. And now, before I start, I'd just say to keep in mind that, Pacific Legal Foundation didn't offer any representation in this case. But as I hope we'll talk about soon, it's very similar to cases happening across the country that we are directly involved in. And what happened in Maricopa County in Arizona is that this fellow, Mr. Jim Berner, who's a disabled veteran, as you say, was apparently behind on the tax payments on his mobile home by an underpayment by the amount of $200. And a mobile home is actually considered personal property, even though it's a home where you live. It's considered almost as if it were a car or a horse or whatever, and so there are very few procedural protections in place when it comes to personal property and tax delinquencies. So they auctioned his mobile home off almost immediately for an underpayment of $200 and left the man without a place to stay. Now they sold it for $4,500 to a private developer, who then turned around and offered to sell it back to Mr. Berner for $52,000.
Oh, my.
And so, it's an embarrassing situation because in reality it turns out that Mr. Berner had paid. And you've got the sheriff's office blaming the treasurer's office. You've got the treasurer's office pointing fingers back at the sheriffs about whose fault it was that nobody realized that he actually had he actually had paid the delinquency on the home, or on the mobile home, rather. And so that was a massive source of embarrassment for them. I think Treasurer even offered to purchase the home back from the developer out of his own pocket to make the story go away. Ultimately, the county government officials did determine that he made his tax payment on time. They were able to void the auction, and he'll get his house back.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm shaking my head, David. How does this happen? How does this problem exacerbate itself gets to the point where all of a sudden this veteran is out in the cold, literally? Weren't there some stopgaps along the way that could have been employed and people with common sense could have got involved?
Right. You know, there are all kinds of procedural protections that should be in place, that are in place, and aren't used. And I think the reason it gets this far is because in several states, about a dozen, Arizona is among them, the tax code creates a system whereby the local governments can profit tremendously off of small, minor mistakes made by property owners. So, you know, in a similar case in Michigan, and this is one the Pacific Legal Foundation filed in the first week of July, in Detroit, there our client Erica Perez had underpaid her property taxes by about $150, and the county took the home, sold it at auction for $108,000, and kept every penny. That's more than 200 times what they were owed. And in Michigan and in Arizona and about 10 other states, that is the result that's encouraged and sometimes even mandated by the state tax code. And so I don't think it's too surprising, Zeb, when you've got a situation where local governments can profit so handsomely off of small mistakes, that they might not be so diligent about, you know, making sure that they send their notices to the right address, and making sure that they have all their papers in order. Aside from the usual, you know, bureaucratic incompetence that we see, these tax code regimes just add another layer of incentives for local governments to do a bad job, and I certainly think we saw them do a bad job in Maricopa County as regards Mr. Berner.
Let me ask you this in regards to the case that you are involved in Michigan. Okay, the person did not pay the taxes on time or the bulk of what was due. Couldn't there have been some, okay, Mr. Smith or whatever the person's name was, or Mrs. Smith, this amount is not the full amount. When do you have that? When will you have that sum available? We'll work with you. Isn't there any working with people anymore and trying to make sure that they're taken care of?
Yeah, there should be, and there absolutely could be. I mean, in the case in Michigan, the county absolutely did not have to take the entire home and property to satisfy a debt of less than $150. They could have garnished rent payments on the property. They could have tried to partition the property and taken just one unit out of the 4-apartment building. They could have done all sorts of things, and in fact, as an ancient principle of fairness in lending, what they really ought to have done is continue to apply the most recent tax payments to the oldest debt, because these people aren't trying to get away with anything. They're not trying to hide $150 from the government. A mistake was made somewhere down the line. We'll learn more about that as the case goes on, as we can access some more government records. The nature of the mistake is a little unclear, but they paid their taxes in full every single year. They're not trying to get away with $150.
You know, I'm appalled sitting here thinking that these people that work as clerks and represent the county or the city or the town are basically taking lessons in how to be Ebenezer Scrooge and hurt people, literally hurt people, take them out of their homes, turn them into homeless people, and pride themselves upon turning a huge profit for the taking of property and leaving someone destitute. That's absolutely immoral.
Yeah, no kidding. And Ebenezer Scrooge is one interesting example. I like to think that, you know, there were prohibitions against this kind of practice in the Magna Carta, you know, the Declaration of English Rights in 1215. So these county governments are doing things that would have made the King of England blush, violating basic ancient principles of fairness that are legally cognizable.
I'm sitting here. What about the persons like this person in Michigan or anywhere else in this country where this story might be applicable? What about turning this thing around and they get legal representation like through you, the Pacific Legal Foundation, and they go after these people or these cities or these townships like a junkyard dog? Can they come back and defeat them? Can they win back not only their money but other compensation? What happens?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. They certainly can file suit. I mean, this is certainly actionable in a court of law, and that's why we filed 3 lawsuits on this subject in state courts in Michigan. One of which is before the Michigan Supreme Court right now. That'll be argued by a colleague of mine sometime in the autumn, and hopefully, depending on the outcome of that case, it could completely change the situation, but it'll be restricted to Michigan. But absolutely, property owners can sue for compensation. This kind of thing is an uncompensated taking. It's prohibited by the Fifth Amendment. Government can't take your property without paying for it, and your equity in your home is private property under the Constitution. So property owners absolutely have recourse in the courts. I hope they'll also certainly contact their legislators, because that's another way to fix this thing. The problem in all these states is coming from the tax code. So we're happy to work with legislators, or if anybody is having a similar scenario happen to them, they can go to pacificlegal.org and get in contact with us, and we'd be happy to take a look at their individual situation and see how we can help.
Let me ask you this, David. How many years have you been an attorney?
Almost one, Zeb.
Almost one. Now, that's good, because you're falling right into where I wanted to ask a question. When you were in law school and studying all the various cases that would bring you up to speed to do the job that you're doing today, you must be, as a relatively new attorney, you must be absolutely appalled that this kind of garbage could happen in the United States of America.
Yeah, no question. I mean, one of the state judges in Michigan said it was theft, which is what we've been saying all along. We're not shy about calling it what it is. It's theft. It's gross injustice, and it calls out for relief. I remember actually reading a case in law school. Now that you brought it up, it's a slightly different context. It has to do more with contracts than with government, but essentially the principle is you can't lend somebody appliances and on an installment payment plan, and then take back everything once the final payment was missing. So there's a basic case in the contract textbooks that every law student learns that says private parties absolutely can't act in this manner. And yet you've got county governments all over about a dozen states that are doing just that.
Is it the fault, and I don't want to point the finger at any one entity, but is it the fault of our politicians? Is it the fault of not having any overseeing? Is it the fault of nobody standing up for the consumer or the property owner? Really, where do you start drawing and pointing your fingers as to who's really at fault?
It's a good question, and it's a little tricky in a lot of these states to figure out exactly how the situation came to be this way, because, for example, in Michigan, they rewrote their tax code in the 1990s in such a manner that would allow this, but it took local governments a little while to catch on that they could make such handsome profits at the expense of property owners who have made tiny, minuscule mistakes. It took them a while to realize that the statute could operate in that way. So it's difficult to pinpoint exactly when this started happening or who figured out that they could make these kind of windfall profits and rip off property owners. But ultimately, I think the failure is the failure of state legislatures who write tax codes that create perverse incentives and then the fault of the local government officials who were charged with enforcing them.
You know, it almost seems to me, and again, David, correct me if you think I'm way off base here, but it's not attuned to any one specific area. I mean, we're talking about Arizona. We're talking about Michigan. I've heard other stories back on the East Coast. I've heard comparable stories happening in Florida. Are the county tax assessors in many, many instances just telling their people, ha, if you see somebody delinquent, go get them?
You know, I couldn't speak to the individual motivations of the tax assessors or the sheriff's office or the treasurers. You're right that it's not geographically limited in scope. It's happening in states all around the country, and unfortunately, you're right that there are absolutely some bad apples in local governments. In one of the cases that we have in Michigan, we found emails during the course of the suit celebrating that there was going to be a county treasury staff barbecue on the property once they had managed to kick the owner out.
Oh, my goodness. Now, that absolutely flies in the face of any public decency whatsoever.
Doesn't that just rile you up?
You know, the consumer makes mistakes. The homeowner makes mistakes. And all of a sudden, due to life's unexpected hazards, I'm not saying in the case of the veteran or the person in Michigan, maybe all of a sudden life came up and slapped them in the face and they didn't have even $150 to pay this. There's got to be some way to work with people that are property owners that have been diligent all the years that they've had the property, and all of a sudden they had a little snake pit happen. They've got to have some compensation or somebody standing over to protect them so that they don't fall into this problem.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And, you know, as we were saying before, local governments have options in many of these cases, and they certainly had options in Michigan. They didn't have to take the whole home and make $108,000 to satisfy a $150 debt. They just didn't have to do it. That debt was from 2013, and the Perez family, our clients in that case, had paid in full every year since. So a basic fair accounting practice would be to apply the most recent payments to the oldest debt. So there's no reason that the home should have been foreclosed on in the first place, because they should have continued to renew the running of the time period of that debt each time that the new property taxes were paid. And like I said, they could have garnished rent payments. They could have seized a small part of the property. You know, there were two structures, and one of the structures was a 4-unit apartment building, so they could have just taken one structure. They could have just taken one apartment. They could have done all kinds of things to avoid, ruining the life savings and the home of a hardworking, productive American family.
This whole thing just reeks. I mean, everyone should be responsible and pay their bills on time. And everybody should look at situations to where I'm responsible for that debt and I must pay this. But there also has to be some humanity involved in not turning people literally into the cold.
I agree with you, and they even got the King of England to agree in 1215. It really is pretty basic. It's not so radically progressive to say that governments can't just steal people's property without paying for it.
Absolutely. David Dearson, tell everyone, if they want to follow this and many, many other very interesting cases with Pacific Legal Foundation, where do they go?
Absolutely. Go to pacificlegal.org. You can learn all about it, and you can find my contact info, and there's a form where you can submit any information you may have if you think that you have a case or you need some help, and we'll see what we can do. I mean, can't make any promises, but pacificlegal.org is the place to go.
Absolutely. David, God bless you, man. Thank you so much. Come back soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Zeb. I appreciate it.
All right, sir. Sharp young man, David Dearson with the Pacific Legal Foundation. Can you imagine that veteran in Arizona? And I'm glad they settled this, but it's a story that we've heard way too many times, that couldn't work because of spinal and brain injuries. He had served his country. and for $236. $236 in back taxes. He lost everything. Everything. There's got to be fairness and an equity in these stupid situations. And then for some of these townships or towns or whatever to sit back and gloat over the amount of money that they made for their county or their city respectively, and say we're going to have a barbecue on the property that we just assumed, that's absolutely evil. Weather forecast. Got to get that in. I'm telling you what, I'm fighting with everybody here today. Our weather brought to you by Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And they've been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. These people are the best. That's not brag. That's a fact. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. The best of tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, retirement planning, all of this. The list goes on and on as to the services they can provide for you. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Caller will be right there, but first of all, here's Gina with the weather.
Well, at least we're out of the heat advisory. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, but due to harvest kicking up and due to the wildfires in the area, we are going to have some hazy conditions. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, you might want to take note of that. We are expecting a high of 85 today. Tonight, mostly clear with the low of 55. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, expecting a high of 90, overnight low of 61. Few clouds going to be rolling in for Friday, mostly cloudy skies, high of 90, then by Friday evening, we do have a slight chance of thunderstorms, then back to partly cloudy skies, low of 60. That's a look at your weather forecast for 7th.
I'll tell you what, the folks at Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company bringing you the weather this hour, and they can help people starting a business or a partnership or wanting to hire more employees or anything that you have questions about your finances for your family or your business. They can and they will help you. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Caller, you've been very patient. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Yes, the government, being the most powerful agent we have, cannot take your home. Say like you didn't pay your federal income tax and all that kind of stuff. They can't come in and take your home. They can put a lien on it, and they cannot do anything with that until somebody else wants to put a lien on it, but they have to pay off the first lien before they can exercise it. But this idea of a person being late on their taxes, and yet, it's not like repossessing a car or something. That house is going to be there.
Yeah.
So why in the world would they foreclose on somebody for $150?
Yeah, and the other point that needs to be made right there, when they did the investigation that should have been done prior to evicting the person and confiscating and assuming the property, they found, oops, they had paid the taxes. I mean, all of this mess, all of this harangue, all of this mental anguish, and they, the city or the township, made the mistake.
Yeah, the government is allowed to make mistakes. They're autonomous as far as people are concerned. They don't have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Because nobody can stand up to them, because the county has a prosecuting attorney and all these things, and you have to go get a lawyer just to protect something that you did not do.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Keith, it's frustrating to me because I hear these stories all the time, and that's why I have the Pacific Legal Foundation on my program. But it's appalling that there's not more protection for the consumer and the property owner. Thank you for your call. I got to get a commercial in. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, sir. I want to remind you, too, about our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Hello, Jeff and the rest of the crew. Oh, let's talk about furniture. Let's talk about kind of new going into the fall for the beautification and the comfortization of your home. Oh, you're going to be spending a lot more time in your home as we draw closer to fall and winter, and you want to make sure that you can just sit back and say, by golly, this is really comfortable. Well, why don't you stop in today and see the folks at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, 459 Overland in Burley. Whether it's carpet or whether it's recliners, whether it's a new bedroom set, it doesn't make any difference. They've got it all, and they can help you at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Wow. Let's see what else have I got cooking here. A reminder. Lunch Bunch. We are going to be over at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner, at 611 North Overland in Burley on tomorrow at 11:30 for Lunch Bunch, and we certainly hope you'll come and join us. The best of food and the best of fellowship and friends and visiting and just having a good time. 11:30 tomorrow at Denny's Restaurant. We want to we got a lot of door prizes to give away. We want to say thank you to Walmart, Smith's Foods, Hanson Mortuary, Stokes Groceries, Doug Martin, Denny's, all of those great people that support our Zeb's Lunch Bunch at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. Thank you very much. What have we got coming up next hour? During the news break last hour, I called Josh Anderson. I said, Josh, where are we going to be fishing today? And he said, Zeb, we're headed up into the Sawtooth Basin. We're going after rainbow trout and cutthroats. Ooh, good fishing and all the equipment necessary and everything at Sportsman's Warehouse. They've got it all. Call her real quick. I've got about 45 seconds. Real fast. Go.
Hey, Hoss, this is the Chief. What's up?
Hi, Chief. Real quick, what can I do for you?
Well, around here, the same thing happens. It don't have to happen somewhere else or in Arizona. I get water out of a ditch here maybe an hour or two every week, and they put a lien against my house because we've been here 25 years, and it used to be the bill was $25-$30 a year, and now it's like $250 a year. We lost track of $75 someplace, put a lien against my house. They didn't even bother to come down here and tell me or call me on the phone, say, hey, work it out. That's the way they are. They never say thank you. It's all like you're the bad person, but, we're old and on a limited budget, and everything just keeps going up, and then you get with the county, they'll let you get behind, sure, because they're charging you a 15% late fee.
Chief, I don't want to be rude to you of anybody that's ever called into my program. I appreciate your calls. I'm out of time, but this is a story that I'm going to pursue a little further because it's not immune to just Florida, Arizona, or Michigan. It does happen all over, and I'm going to do some more checking. Give me a call on another morning when I've got more time. God bless you, man. Thank you. I got to run to the news right now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, sir. We're going to run to the news and be back with the old fishing hole, and then at 10:30, Grant Haber. Don't miss it. We'll be right back. Oh, good morning. Hope you're having a great Wednesday, July 24th. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best of tires. Stop in and see them today. Also, don't forget some of our great advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Want to remind you about our dear friends also at Patterson's, 421 East Main in Burley. Hello, Curtis and Lorena. My goodness, they are busy, busy, busy. They know that they've got all your electronic needs. You want to stop in and you want to check out all the home theater systems. systems, all the surveillance cameras for your property, especially if you live in the rural areas, and of course complete sound systems and all the TVs. What the list goes on and on. Free delivery in the area of Burley. I tell you what, you call them and they can and will help you. Patterson's at 421 East Main in Burley. Number to call, 678-6997. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. Patterson's in Burley. Also, real quick, we want to remind you about some folks that absolutely have hit a home run, I think, in being able to provide seniors a great place to live and enjoy and develop their friendships, and that's Greystone Crossing. Greystone Crossing, independent senior living on Alfresco Road, that's 21st Street, and they're just a mile east of Walmart. Now, here's what I want to do this morning. I tell you every day about the great meals. I tell you all about the great services and everything, but I want to tell you to schedule an appointment now to go over there and take in firsthand the facilities and make arrangements to live right there at Greystone Crossing, independent senior living. The number to call is 650-4979. That number again, 650-4979. Contact Matt or Kelly, and they will help you. Absolutely. Greystone Crossing, independent senior living. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line. And I wished I had this man's job on Wednesdays so that I could get out and enjoy more of the great Idaho outdoors. He works for Sportsman's Warehouse, and they literally have it all for all the sportsmen and all the activities outdoors. Sportsman's Warehouse at 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin. And this man has been so diligent to be there every week and tell us about fishing and where to catch the big ones, how to catch the big ones. Josh Anderson, good morning on the old fishing hole. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on again, Zeb.
Well, it's always my pleasure, believe me. Now, tell us and tantalize us a little bit about where you're going fishing today.
I'm trying to get up over the mountain here shortly and lose some cell phone service in the Stanley Basin. We're going to go up and take a few days, backpack up to a mountain lake or two, fish some creeks and streams, and try to enjoy this nice week. It's supposed to be beautiful. Maybe we get up there and it might be in the mid-80s instead of down here cooking near 100.
Well, let me ask you, okay, you're talking about backpacking in to catch some rainbow and some cutthroat. Let's talk about the fish first and foremost. When you get back into these backcountry mountain streams, what kind of size are we talking about?
It varies from lake to lake. We're going to hit one lake that I've had a friend that has caught a big cutthroat, over 20 inches. And then there's some more remote lakes up around there that are, they're more like a average mountain lake trout and cutthroat in the 10 to 14 inch range. But we're trying to get off the beaten path. The lakes that are, accessible by road are pretty tough fishing, dead of summer. They see a lot of people. We're going to try to get off the beaten path a little bit and try to fish some unpressured fish that haven't been able to be caught, over and over again, or, see a hook every other day.
When you say that, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about many, many places in this God's blessing called Idaho, and you, of all people, know it far better than most. When you go on a backpack fishing trip like this, tell us, Josh, how do you plan for what kind of gear you're going to need to stay back up in there for a couple of days?
So we're going to be bringing some smaller ultralight rods with just some really light line and, a few silver spinners and, some flies, some various flies where we can use one of the clear water bubble that we can fill up with water, and it will allow us to cast it out into the lake and reel it in slow. And then, from water purifiers to your tent to some lighter weight sleeping bags to make it more enjoyable to be able to actually walk in there and bring some luxuries and maybe your food or comforts and having enough room in your backpack for a pillow. But yeah, we're going to get up there and take the gear and try to spend a few days away from people, and that way I believe we'll probably be pretty successful at catching a few fish. But yeah, it's one of those you do bring a random array of like lighter weight stuff because you would want to be able to take all the gear to make your experience enjoyable.
You know, when you talk about that, how many pounds of gear is really a safe poundage to try to pack back in without maybe the risk of injury?
Really, we like to see if they're, not very advanced in backpacking. They haven't prepared themselves. You don't want to get much over 40 pounds. The beauty of that is if you do bring multiple people, you can split up the gear where somebody might be packing all the sleeping bags, and it keeps them in a safe weight for what they're doing. And another person might be carrying the cooking gear and the food. When you're trying to do it all yourself, depending on how many days you're going, it's hard to keep it under 40 pounds. But usually a guy going out by himself has done it multiple times and has prepared himself for what he's getting himself into.
You know, Josh, we're talking about fishing, but when we talk about going into some of the places that you're visiting, you got to talk about all the gear, all the tents, all the frying pans, whatever, and especially the sleeping bags. There has been in the industry, I would imagine, a big change in sleeping bags over the years. Tell us a little bit about what they can find at Sportsman's Warehouse.
Yeah, just getting away from a polyfill bag to a down bag can drop your weight in your backpack, go from an 8-pound sleeping bag to under 4 pounds, and that immediately makes a huge difference in what you might be able to take when you're up there. The down bags run a little bit more. Usually they can be a couple $100 for a good one. And then a lightweight tent shelter type thing. And one thing that saves a ton of weight in my backpack's a water purifier. When you don't have to pack all the water that you need to drink for the next couple days, an average guy should drink probably a gallon of water or more a day, depending on how much work he's doing. And trying to pack that at 8 pounds a gallon, it can get, pretty heavy after a couple days. So there's a few things like that. There's the Life Straw Pen, which you can just stick into the water and drink right from the creek. There's a lot of different applications out there that might get you a more enjoyable experience again. And, if you have the right gear and you're comfortable, it's a lot easier to enjoy the great outdoors. Another big thing that we did make sure that we had was bug spray. You get up there and you get eaten alive by mosquitoes, you won't have an enjoyable experience at all.
Well, let me ask you about the water purifiers, because I remember about 30 years ago, I was subject to a very, very scary and deadly Giardia, and you got to really watch your water source. Has there been a lot of increase in scientific study of water purifiers and the straws that you're talking about to make it safe and reliable to literally drink the water right out of the stream or lake?
For the most part, in our high mountain lakes and that, yes. But, yeah, there are some certain filters. If you were down around, like, trying to drink out of the Snake River and that, you might go to a higher quality water purifier that goes down to a smaller micron to relieve a lot of that. When you get in the higher mountain streams and rivers, you don't have as much cattle. You don't have as much animals that are actually wasting in the creek. That would probably be the biggest thing that probably gets people, is being downstream of the herd and drinking, canal water or whatnot, and they can definitely get really ill if they don't have the right equipment. On all the packaging before you purchase it, it breaks down exactly what it removes from cyst to Giardia and whatnot, so you can kind of pick the right water filter for your trip that you're going to be heading out for.
What about the cooking equipment? Now, that stuff can't be very light, and it's got to be kind of hard to pack. Talk to us about what you take for cooking equipment.
Well, with 3 or 4 people, I have personally, and it's a little heavier than most, an aluminum Dutch oven. It's just a little 10-inch, but what I like is it holds heat better than most your lightweight cooking gear. It's something that I don't take when I'm cooking for one. I do have some just lightweight stainless steel copper bottom pots and pans that I'll take. But when I'm able to bring multiple people, we do like have a luxury of being able to bring something like that. And when we can cook up some sausage and eggs and cover it up and it holds the heat good, you can make some good breakfast burritos and make that your experience, enjoyable with all the good food. And it's the little things when you do get up off the beaten path that makes all the difference in the world.
Let's talk about clothing, and I know Sportsman's Warehouse has just absolute complete line of clothing for any and all outdoor adventures. But how do you know what to take, how much to take, etc., when you're packing for a trip like this?
Layers. That's all we will always stress is layers. You're going to start with a base layer and then like a mid-weight layer and a heavy layer. And you hope not to have to put the heavy layer on. Hopefully you can run around with your lighter weight T-shirt and stuff for most of the day as long as you got your sunscreen and everything on. And then when it gets colder that evening, a long sleeve mid-weight shirt. And hopefully you don't have to put your coat on over the top of it, but usually have it as a backup. But if you don't have that plan of it might get nasty out there and have a good rain shell jacket of some sort, you might be in trouble. So it's one of those that layers. You can always take layers off and you can always put more back on. And usually we only take as much as you can put on your body. If you can't wear it, you might as well leave it and take off what you don't need and carry it with you. And when it gets cold enough, put it all on.
Okay. Now, my question would be, here we've got all this gear. We've got our fishing equipment. We've got our eating utensils, our stove, etc. And we've got our clothing, our tent and everything. How in the world do we know how to pack that stuff?
Really, it's one of those, depending on what you're getting. We got different sized backpacks, anywhere from 3,500 cubic inch up over 8,000 cubic inch of space. The pack I'm running today is about a good 3-day pack, and I can expand it out to about 8,000 cubic inches. I'm probably only going to run about, 6 to 6,500 for this trip. And then that was just because we have a couple other backpacks that are in that 4,000 cubic inch, and we got them stuffed full, too, of just different gear to make it up there and back in one piece.
Okay. Now, can they, the consumer and the people that are listening to this segment, the old fishing hole, if they're going, holy smokes, I don't know how to backpack, I don't know what to put in the pack, I don't know how to pack it so that it's going to balance out and everything, do you give lessons or teach people how to do that at Sportsman's Warehouse?
We have knowledgeable associates that would definitely go through and help you get the right gear and plan a trip. We're always going to stress baby steps. Just try to get yourself, a small plan first. Even if you get all your gear and you just take it up to the South Hills and camp out of the car just to get familiar with your equipment and realize the stuff that you didn't use and take it out of the backpack and maybe bring a little notepad and paper and write down what you wish you had so that you could actually, when you get home, remember what you were wishing you had when you were there. A lot of times you get home and you're just happy to be home and you forget about it by the time you go on your next trip.
Let me ask you a little bit about the food, because I know that you have various dried foods at Sportsman's Warehouse. What do you take on a trip like this to create meals?
We do definitely the dry food stuff. It's makes it easy. It's lightweight. We will bring probably a pound of frozen meat. I've got a really small cooler that I can get about a pound of meat and 6 eggs in, and it fits in my backpack, so usually we'll take that just for one good solid meal. Me and my son were hoping we can maybe scrounge up a couple trout, and we got some white rice, just some instant rice in a bag. And then like oatmeal and stuff like that, stuff you can just add water to for breakfast, and, try to have a couple good meals to keep your food up and your energy up, but, you know, those dry backpacker meals will get you through a pinch.
Now, talk a little bit about the fishing equipment itself, the spinning equipment and or fly equipment. What are you going to be using up there?
We're just going to be using our little ultralight rod and reel. It runs about 6 foot long, and they're two-piece, and we can get 2 of them into a little pull case. And we just got a little Plano box. We just piled a bunch of spinners and some small Rapalas and flies, hooks, and sinkers. And we just got it all into this little pull case that we'll tie off to our backpack. So when we get to where we're going to camp, we'll drop a lot of our gear and get everything set up, and then we'll be able to lighten our backpacks way up and be able to add just our fishing poles and some water and a few snacks and be able to sneak off down the creek a few miles or even make a circle to where we fish a couple different mountain lakes within a few hours. From where we're at, it looks like we have 6 lakes that are within a 4-hour walk.
Oh, my goodness. You know, Josh, people are envious of you and what you do and who you represent, Sportsman's Warehouse. Tell us the hours that you're there, the hours that they're open, and anything else about Sportsman's Warehouse and backpacking and fishing, etc. We got about a minute left in the segment. Go ahead.
Yep, we're open from 9 to 9, Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 on Sunday. We're at 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard. We got lots of knowledgeable associates. Come find one of us, and we'll get you all set up and, you know, ask the questions, and we'll get the answers to you, and we'll get all the equipment you need.
I'll tell you what, I wish you the very best of a great, great backpacking trip into the water, the lakes and the streams, and you and your son, God's blessings. And Josh Anderson, thank you for being a part of the Old Fishing Hole, sponsored by Sportsman's Warehouse.
I enjoy every opportunity you give me, Zeb, to be on the air. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
God bless you. That man is so nice and so amenable to take his time and come on our program on behalf of Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. And holy smokes, you can learn so much from him to enjoy the great outdoors, the backpacking and what to pack and the clothing and those little small stoves and ovens and all the fishing equipment, everything. Fantastic. I enjoy that segment. The Old Fishing Hole with Josh Anderson from Sportsman's Warehouse in Twin Falls. Wow. Okay, back to reality. You can't get up in the hills today, Zeb. Let's see what else have I got cooking here that I've got to tell you about. I think I'm all caught up, but I'll tell you about this sale. There is going to be the Bennett Boys Auction Service going to have a sale this Saturday. It's the Lou Sterling Estate Auction, and it's going to be at 11 o'clock on Saturday, this coming Saturday, July 27th. And it's going to be in Kimberly at Storage Land, and they're located at 22329 Kimberly Road. From the east side of Twin, go east on Kimberly Road to Storage Land. You can't miss it. There'll be lunch by the Cook Shack. But I will tell you that they are going to have just absolutely some amazing, outstanding antiques and collectibles. They're going to have old military trunks and suitcases, and they're going to have all kinds of antique, very, very nice glassware, furniture, miscellaneous items, all of this and more at the Lou Sterling Estate Auction this coming Saturday, July 27th, located in Kimberly at Storage Land. 22329 Kimberly Road, starting at 11 o'clock. And this sale managed by Bennett Boys Auction Service. Remember, Joe and the crew, no sale too big, no sale too small. The Bennett Boys, yep, they sell them all. Really good folks. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to have another gentleman coming on our program, and it will be Grant Haber, and he is the CEO of IEDcrisis.com, and we're going to be talking about remarks that were made by President Trump the other day about Afghanistan and the winning of that war. We're going to have Grant on to discuss this. I want to take just a moment quickly and remind you about tomorrow. We're going to have Lunch Bunch, and a lot of folks I just hope you'll be there. I mean, we've got such a great fellowship once a month there at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. We all get together and just have a lot of good food and a lot of great fellowship and visiting and door prizes. And we're going to have door prizes donated by Walmart, Smith's Foods, Hanson Mortuary, Stokes Groceries, Doug Martin, Denny's. Come on down. Bring your friends and neighbors and come on down. You don't have to join anything or whatever. Just come on down and have lunch with us at America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant, and that's at 11:30 tomorrow. Be there. I had another news item, and I'm trying to find it right here. If I get time later on, I want to talk about Berkeley, California, and the city of Berkeley. This is unbelievable to me. They have banned, starting in January of 2020, they have banned natural gas. They are not going to let it be used for homes, for cooking, for heating, whatever. Berkeley's new law hurts homeowners both by depriving them of freedom and by forcing them to buy much more expensive alternatives, electric. Everything they deem must be electric. We're going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow because this isn't the America that I was born and raised in. And this kind of idiocy and incompetency is going to spread like wildfire or cancer into other locations. But we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow on the program. Right now, we're going to send it back over to Wheels, and he's going to take it for the bottom of the hour break. I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb.
Thank you very much. I want to remind everybody real quick about our friends at Dino's Septic Service. Oh, you don't want to be standing out there on a warm day pumping out a septic tank. Oh, no. You don't want to have to be in charge of liquid waste removal or sewer and sink drain lines clean, but I know somebody that will. I know somebody that does. And that's, of course, Dino's Septic Service. And they're located all over Magic Valley. I mean, they've got their headquarters and they're ready to serve all the people. They've recently expanded. The number to call, 436-6526 or 678-1638. The best, the fast, fair, friendly service with backhoe services, septic tanks and drain fields installed. All of this and so much more serving you with that big truck that pulls in the yard that says, smells cargo on the way. Don't forget to work with the best. Dino's Septic Service. Right now, we're going to go to, my voice cracked, sound like a little kid. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line. And we have a gentleman that is the CEO of IEDcrisis.com, and we're going to be talking about the Middle East. He knows that area, and he knows how volatile it might be or will be. Grant Haber, good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on the show, Zeb.
Well, it's my pleasure because I pride myself on this program of getting people on the show that know what they're talking about, and you're one of those individuals. Give us a little background about your being the CEO of IEDcrisis.com. What does that mean?
IED Crisis is actually a movement. I'm the founder of AmericanInnovations.com that I launched in 1995, and we created the first high-throughput security checkpoints in the United States with explosive detection portals in the year 2000. That was adopted by the nuclear facilities. 2001, we went to war, and I've been supporting the Department of Defense in various capacities to enable our soldiers and Marines and our partner nation forces on the ground to dismantle bomb maker support networks and cut off the supplies of bomb making materials before they get to the IED factory.
You know, you are involved in what I would think is extremely dangerous, hazardous, and yet very, very needful work. I guess my question would be, after what you do and how you put it forth, how safe are we in this country?
We need to do a better job overseas to increase our safety here, but, you know, it's a challenging time that we're in because the terrorists only have to be right once. We have to be right 100% of the time. And it's important that we understand that IEDs are terrorist weapon of choice. And if we don't prioritize on terrorism and the root cause of terrorism, or should I say root facilitators of terrorism, which are bomb-making materials, bomb makers, and bomb maker support networks, the enemy is going to continue to grow, and it's only a matter of time before they exploit the security gaps that get created from complacency.
Mm-hmm. Grant, I guess my biggest question to you this morning would be, as an expert of this area, we have been almost 20 years in Afghanistan, and not only the money and the equipment, but also the loss of life and the maiming of our soldiers, and now we're looking at perhaps another engagement with Iran. Bring us up to speed as to what your thoughts are on that portion of the world.
My thoughts are we need to understand, it goes back to the core of these bombings and these attacks. Iran has been supplying bomb-making materials into the battlefield in Iraq. Their materials are ending up in Afghanistan. You just got to look at where, you know, that country borders Iraq and borders Afghanistan. So if we look at our national defense strategy, it's important to understand where the prioritization is in the Department of Defense, and that is on China and Russia and Iran and North Korea. Those are the priorities. What got pushed down in the priorities are terrorism, which, from my perspective, they should all have equal importance, especially when terrorism and IEDs have been the number one contributor to U.S. military casualties since the early stages of the war. We don't protect our people, our soldiers, people that volunteer to serve our nation, to protect the freedoms that we enjoy. We fail as a nation. So hopefully with the new Secretary of Defense, terrorism will work its way back up to a priority level that will give it the support and energy it needs to protect our greatest asset, which is our men and women in uniform.
Grant, this week I was watching television. I tried to study as much of the news as I can, all various aspects of the news, and I was watching as President Trump was sitting with Pakistan's Prime Minister, and they had a press conference, and President Trump claimed that he could win the Afghanistan war in a week. What would be your response to that statement?
President Trump, in my professional opinion, is really frustrated by the options that are being presented to him. The options are not viable options for providing the president what he's after. President Trump is after results. He's tired of the empty promises. Peace is around the corner. We're 6 months away, just another 6 months. What President Trump is after is quantifiable metrics. He wants to start seeing measurable gains. What would be of utility to the president is if the Department of Defense could go to the White House and say that in July we've seized 100 tons of bomb-making material. We arrested X number, hundreds of people involved with transporting, storing, and manufacturing these bomb-making materials into IEDs. We've had a reduction in bombings. We've had a reduction in casualties. these are the quantifiable metrics that the Pentagon has failed to be able to deliver to the White House, because terrorism and IEDs, despite being the number one casualty producer since the early stages of the war, are a very, very low priority. And that's why we're not getting where we want to be and where the president expects the war in Afghanistan to be after he has provided $1.4 trillion to the Defense Department since he's taken off.
Let me ask you this question to finish up that portion of the Middle East with Iran momentarily, but we have a caller with a question for you, Grant. And Wheels over at the station, turn Mr. Haber up as much as you can when he's speaking, please. Go ahead, caller. Quickly, you're on the air. Caller, go ahead, please. Are you there? Wheels, did we have a call come in or not?
I really don't have any comments on that right now, because I didn't quite understand it all. But so I'll let somebody else take over.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Grant, let me ask you, in accordance with what you just said with Afghanistan, let me ask you about the boiling over, if you will, of what's happening in Iran. It seems like the leadership in Iran is like the local street bully. They keep pushing and shoving, but the end result is they're going to get poked in the nose. Is that how you would look at this?
I wouldn't look at it that way. I would just kind of look at the problem as a whole. Let's just talk about Afghanistan, because they border Iran. There are millions of Afghans that have fled Afghanistan because of explosive violence. Those millions of Afghans are in Iran, and then there's millions more that are in Pakistan. They're obviously in other places too. But what you got to understand is when the Department of Defense, the U.S. military, which is the greatest military in the world, can't bring to the table quantifiable metrics against a weapon system that costs terrorists $100, it doesn't show much confidence. And when there's bombings going off on a daily basis and men, women, and children dying on a daily basis and sustaining life-changing injuries on a daily basis, and the U.S. military can't get a handle on that, people lean on other countries out of mere desperation for support. In this case, Iran being one of them. That's the connection to the U.S. Department of Defense National Defense Strategy that we need to be cognizant of when we keep pushing terrorism lower and lower as a priority. We need to look at what's killing everybody, and then we need to drill down on that and see how countries like Iran have involvement in it, and China and Russia.
You know, Grant, when you say this, it is so understandable, and you lay it out in simplified terms so that even I can understand it. But my question right back at you would be, my anger, my hatred towards our United States Congress. They're sitting right now in special hearings trying to go over a Mueller report that's been dug over and dug in deeper over the last 2 years, wasting time when they could be addressing the issue that you're talking about.
Congress has been talking about the bomb-making materials, which are two, that are used to make more than 90% of the IEDs now for more than 10 years. I had, when he was the chairman of the Armed Services Appropriations Committee, Chairman Rodney Frelinghuysen, he and I had a pretty deep conversation, and he said that these committees, by the way, there's 8 committees with oversight of capacity building. Capacity building is the force behind taking, an Afghan civilian and making him a soldier or a police officer. Capacity capacity building. There's 8 committees with oversight of capacity building, and they've been talking about the bomb-making materials that are used to make more than 90% of the bomb for more than 10 years, and yet they haven't directed, which is within their authority, directed the Pentagon to get after these bomb-making materials.
Go ahead, please.
And assigning funding to actually follow through with the directive.
We have a caller with a
time on Capitol Hill because it's political posturing and it's a distraction to the president, but I think President Trump is smart enough to understand what's happening here, and despite all the headwinds that he continues to take on a daily basis, he still finds a way to get things done.
Absolutely. We have another caller with a question. Caller, this time you're on the air. Quickly, go.
Well, we have a congressman from Idaho who always gets reelected no matter what he says or does, who has never defended Trump, who's never defended Idaho, who's never said a word about anything that matters. He wants to breach the dams for the fish, and his name's Mike Simpson. He's about as worthless as, I don't know, as a thistle. I'll hang up.
Respond to the caller, even if you don't know that congressman. Please, go ahead.
I do not know the congressman that he's referring to, and there are a lot of good people serving in Congress, and there are a good number of useless people serving in Congress. What we need to do is we need to understand that there are men and women, young men and women, that are volunteering for our country to protect our freedoms. And regardless of your party preferences or your agendas, you need to do a better job uniting in Congress to give these soldiers the tools and the training that they need, that they require to take on the imminent threats that are in front of them so they can do and come home safely to their family.
Absolutely. I'm almost out of time, but Grant, I want to ask you this, and this question may sound simplified, but it's not. If all of a sudden you were the man in charge, you were the man that could control the destiny of the programs that would keep our soldiers safer, what would you do?
I would mandate that every nation receiving U.S. foreign aid for counterterrorism be required to train their soldiers and their police officers to become sensors of the explosive precursors that are being used to make more than 90% of the IEDs. The idea behind this is, let's look at Afghanistan. We can train and equip 300,000 Afghan soldiers and police officers in about 9 months. And if you have 300,000 soldiers and police officers out there looking for 2 bomb-making materials that go under the disguise of sugar, flour, cement, or other bulk materials, you can quickly eradicate the HME IED threat by taking away enemy supplies. And in the process of taking away their bomb-making material supplies, you get to dismantle their support networks. Fewer materials, smaller networks equals fewer bombs, less casualties, and U.S. military special operations forces can then move in alongside Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police and get the job done and win the war and transition the country back over to Afghanistan.
Are you optimistic that your plan that you just laid out could be attainable, and might it happen?
In 2012, on a scale, we were able to help the Department of Defense seize 440 tons of bomb-making materials. That was in 2012. So what we were able to accomplish on a small scale can accomplish much more on a larger scale if we can just get the support of the White House to steamroll the bureaucracy that seems to get rewarded for perpetual failures.
I absolutely find you fascinating, and you're very knowledgeable about your subject. Grant Haber, CEO of IEDcrisis.com. Sir, I'm going to ask, I hope you'll come back in the future. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you very much, Grant Haber. Wow. There's a lot of things that need to be done, a lot of things that could be done, a lot of things that should be done, and our Congress doing nothing. Oh, boy. Time for the weather, and the weather this hour brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Hello, Don Scarrow and the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. Want to find out all about their delicious, delicious meats? Well, you can go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com, or you can give them a call, 324-7657. That number again, 324-7657. All the marinated pork ribs and the tri-tips and the bratwurst. Oh, yeah. You can't have a picnic without bratwurst, and they've got delicious bratwurst. All the bacons, everything from Scarro's Meats. Really, really good people at 331 North Road, Jerome. We'll tell you more right after the weather with Gina.
Well, at least we're out of the heat advisory. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, but due to harvest kicking up and due to the wildfires in the area, we are going to have some hazy conditions. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, you might want to take note of that. We are expecting a high of 85 today. Tonight, mostly clear with a low of 55. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, expecting a high of 90. Overnight low of 61. Few clouds going to be rolling in for Friday. Mostly cloudy skies, high of 90. Then by Friday evening, we do have a slight chance of thunderstorms, then back to partly cloudy skies, low of 60. That's a look at your weather forecast for Devitt.
Gina, thank you. And again, I want to remind you, Don Scarrow and the crew, they have delicious meats over at Scarro's Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome. Again, call them if you have questions, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Oh, my. This story, we mentioned it briefly with one of our guests on the air earlier this morning. But did you hear about these climate change protesters? 17 of them were arrested after they had super glued themselves together and to the walls at the U.S. Capitol. I'm not kidding you about this. They decided that they were going to affix themselves to a subway entrance doorway between the House office building and the Capitol, and they're super glued, and literally their hands are on the doors. Their hands are super glued together in kind of a human chain form, and then they put super glue on the backs of their clothing, their pants, their shirts, their blouses, etc., and there they were. And one lady said it best this morning at about 4:45 when I was watching the news. She said, "What happens when one of them's got to go to the bathroom?" Well, anyway, they were all cut loose, if you will, and arrested, but that shows you the idiocy of the left, supergluing themselves to barricade others from trying to get to their job. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Well, during the weather, Gina said wildfires, and I'm going to tell you right now, there ain't nothing changed in Idaho or in any part of the West where we see anything that's changed with any significance, where they're in here harvesting the dead love timber. They're trying to get the underbrush grazed or something, anything. And we're headed towards wildfire season again across the West. And we're going to hear about how many acres have burnt, and we're going to blame it on global warming and people, and then the environmentalists will not allow anybody to do anything because they sue, and we as the government settle, and they get rich, and we lose our unbelievable, beautiful forests, and you know how they look after they've been burnt. And so nothing has changed, and I don't know how we ever get this thing changed. We can have meetings, we can have seminars, we can talk, we can scream. Nothing changes, and nothing has changed.
You know, Randy, everything you said is absolutely the truth. And I'm almost to the point when the environmentalists say thou shalt not, that's when I say thou shalt listen to me, because we're going to do it anyway. I am absolutely adamant that we are being controlled by a very small percentage of our population, and they are telling us what they want, what they expect us to do, and what not to do. And it's about time, like I've said many, many times on this program, we are stepping around these people. Well, it's time to step over them.
Well, they are influencing decisions in Idaho, with Idaho Power, with rivers, with log jams, with bridges that span them. Everything that you can imagine, they are in. And you and I, it's public land. And we're the ones who pay for the maintenance of it. Every one of these people that work for the Forest Service, the BLM, the Bureau of Reclamation, and others, they are earning a living off of our tax dollars. Did you pay the IRS last year, Zeb?
I paid way too much, and you know what? That's a good subject to quit on. We can talk about it tomorrow, because I'm out of time. You kind of led me right up to the edge of the cliff, and now I got to go. Randy, thank you very much. All right, buddy. Hey, don't forget your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. What a segue from that to the tires. Ah, yes, Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and they have the best in tires for all your driving, your cars, pickup, SUVs, horse trailers, boat trailers, all the tread designs, all the sizes, right there at any of the 7 locations. Best in brake service. Boy, they've got highly trained brake technicians to serve you. Front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, all of this and so much more. But service reigns supreme at all 7 Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Trent on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Got to run. Wrap the program up. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 8:06. We always say the way things were, the way things ought to be, and the world needs more cowboys. But above all, in God we trust. See you tomorrow morning.